Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. If there is something that's talked a lot about in the world of AI, I would say that is RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So in today's video, let's deep dive into RAG from enterprise point of view. But Abhishek, there are a lot of videos on the internet that covers RAG. Yes, there are, but they mostly cover what is RAG, what are vector databases, what are embeddings. In today's video, let's not only understand what is RAG, but let's also understand security challenges with RAG and how to overcome those security challenges at your enterprise level. This is very important because RAG systems usually deal with enterprise level internal documents. In a nutshell, we will cover what is RAG, what are security concerns with RAG, like why traditional RBAC systems does not work with RAG. I'll introduce you to the solution, which is called ReBAC, relationship based access control. And towards the end of the video, I also have a cool demonstration. So I'll show you how to design an enterprise grade secure rack system. And for the demo, I'll be using Auth0 FGA. This is going to be very interesting. So just make sure you watch the video till the end. And for the video, all the links that are related are in the description as well as the pinned comment. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Let's start with understanding what is RAG in a nutshell. Very simple. Imagine you want to build an AI assistant within your organization. You will build a backend and you will connect that to a large language model. Large language models are awesome, but they're heavily dependent on the training data. Basically, there are two main challenges with LLMs. One, they cannot help you with internal information. So within your organization, you will have a lot of private documents. It can be information about your proprietary tools, or it can be information about the compliance of your organization. LLMs are not aware of it. On top of that, a lot of times LLMs are not up to date with the information. They might not have information of the recent things that have happened. How do you solve these problems? This is exactly where RAG comes into picture. So using RAG, you can connect your internal documentation or any kind of external sources with the large language models. It can be your Kubernetes runbooks, it can be your incident reports, any kind of PDFs within your Confluence, or even it can be databases. You can connect them using RAG to the large language models. Let me explain how a typical RAG workflow looks like. So let's say you build an AI assistant. User runs a query. Maybe user asks a question to the AI assistant. Backend picks up the question. Backend would perform the search on the vector database. So using similarity search, backend and the vector database identifies the relevant document for the user and shares this information to the large language model. Now, large language model performs the analysis. It tries to understand what user's requirement is, and according to that, it generates a response. So basically, this makes AI applications significantly more useful because they can answer questions using the real time and up-to-date organizational information. Now, user can ask any questions outside your organization scope or maybe information very specific to your organization as well. Now you might say, but Abhishek, RAG looks very good. What is the issue with it? Here comes the actual problem. The vector databases which RAG relies on, they are designed to perform similarity search and return the documents, but they do not take care of authorization. Let me explain this to you with an example. Just imagine there is an organization, and organization has important information, like they have the proprietary documents, they have HR related information, documents, they have financial documents, and they have engineering documents. This is all good. Now let's say DevOps engineer asks the AI assistant, give me the information of the recent incident report. Now what if the retriever or the backend that takes the user's information and the vector database along with returning the incident report also returns a financial information document. Because vector databases performs similarity search, there is a possibility it might retrieve a wrong document, or maybe it might retrieve a document that user must not have access to. Now, in this case, what LLM does, it just takes the document, it performs the analysis on the document, and it shares the response back to the user. LLM also does not take care of the authorization. So this is a major security challenge with the RAG systems. Now, some of you might be thinking, why not go with the traditional RBAC system? Unfortunately, RBAC is not of much use here. Let's see why. What is RBAC? RBAC stands for role-based access control. So typically when there are defined roles, like a developer role, admin role, viewer role, in these cases, RBAC works pretty well. But if you look at the modern AI systems, especially for our use case, where users have access to documents, in these cases, you need granular access control. For example, Alice can have access to only the engineering documents. Charlie can access only projects XYZ documents. Intern should not access production incident reports. Or maybe John can access only document 1 and document 4. Basically, specific documents. Jess can only access resume of the team members she manages. So the relationship is between her and her team, which can even change dynamically. So in this case, what you need is called ReBAC. So ReBAC stands for relationship based access control. So instead of relying only on the static roles, ReBAC models relationship between the users and the resources. The same thing. Now with ReBAC, you can define user Alice can only view the engineering runbook, or user Bob can edit HR policy document. This enables fine-grained authorization at the document level. And this is very important with the RAG systems. Now, what ReBAC brings here is the authorization layer. Now, you can be rest assured, even before the document reaches the large language model, ReBAC performs the authorization and makes sure document goes to LLM only if the user asking the question has access to. Now, this makes the security of the RAG system very robust. But Abhishek, how to implement ReBAC in real time? The best way to get started and to implement RAG security at scale is to go with Auth0 FGA, fine-grained authorization. Very simple. When you use Auth0 FGA, it can implement the authorization for you. And now when user runs a query, so let's say user runs a query to retrieve a certain document or maybe request something, the retriever would retrieve the documents from the vector database. Now these documents are verified. Basically, the permissions are checked against Auth0 FGA, and this will filter out unauthorized documents. So only the documents that user has access to would reach the large language models. This way we can ensure the response from the large language model is something that user has access to. And yeah, let's see this in action now. For the demo, let's create an account with Auth0 FGA. And once we have the account, let's use one of their sample applications to understand FGA implementation in real time. Creating an account is easy. Just use the link in the description, click on get started, then either go with your GitHub account or Google account for sign up. Once you sign up, head to the AI agent section, scroll down, you will find sample applications. In fact, I've used the same sample application to understand FGA implementation. Basically, this is a smart HR assistant, an AI assistant that can help you with different documents within the company. So a RAG implementation, which has documents related to employee salary, performance reviews, employee information, team documents. Let's say DevOps team has their own documents, development team has their own documents, and finally, company policies. So any user can sign up or log in using their access, and they can try to retrieve this information. If user has authorization to the particular document, they would see the information of the document. Let's say if user is not authorized, then the request will be rejected, or user would see they are not authorized for the request. Exactly what we learned in the theory part. And what are the prerequisites to run this application? You just need an Auth0 FGA account. Just click on the link here and you will have an account with Auth0 FGA. Just couple of steps and you have an account. And then you also need OpenAI API key, because end of the day, the documents will be analyzed and summarized by large language model. So you need an API key as well. Once you have that, just couple of steps where you store your credentials, install the dependencies and run the application. That's it. But Abhishek, why do we need Auth0's FGA account? Because we have to map the relationship. There are different documents here. So if you go back to the GitHub repository, there are different documents. Relationship based access control has to be established. For example, on the DevOps team documents, you have to map relation that team members of the DevOps team only have access to the document. Take example of salary information. Only engineers with the HR role should have access to these documents. That mapping we will do within the Auth0's FGA. And this account is free trial account. So you don't have to use a credit card, or you don't even have to pay for it. Let me quickly show you within the GitHub repository where the FGA implementation is made. So we are not going to store the relationship based access control manually, but we will do that using the application itself. So if you search for schema, within this application, the schema is defined, how you want to define the relationship. For example, type team, relations, define member, user or manager, define manager, user. Let's say for salary information, this is a schema. Type salary information, relations, define the user, define company, define can read owner or is HR from company, is admin from the company. So this is how you can define the schema. And once you define the schema, then you just have to create the FGA initialization file. So within the FGA initialization file, you can start providing the relations. So there are different users and relationship is mentioned within the same file. Now, once you run this file, the details are populated within the tuple section. So we haven't run it yet, but once we run that, if we go to the tuple management, we can find document and the relation. Let's see that. First of all, we will clone this GitHub repository. So I have the repository cloned on my terminal. First, I'll install the dependencies. This is a JavaScript application. So we will use bun. Basically, bun is a JavaScript, very fast runtime. So we will run bun install and that would install all the dependencies for us. Then we will create a file .env.local. Provide your OpenAI API key. I have provided my API key in it. And then provide the FGA store ID, FGA client ID, and FGA client secret. But Abhishek, why do we have to create the client ID and client secret? The same OIDC or RBAC concept. You are creating a client because you can use the same FGA for different clients within your organization. You don't have to use it for one single application. Even if you have different projects, different applications, you can use single Auth0's FGA. Now, how do you create the client? Just head to the store settings, scroll down, and you have an option for creating a client. Click on the client and provide the client information within the .env.local file. Again, I've provided the client information, client secret, and OpenAI key. Now that I have this information, I just have to go ahead and run FGA init. Why are we running this? Now the information is available within the GitHub repository, the relationship based access control. We want to push that access control information or authorization information onto the FGA. So let's do that. I'll run run FGA init. There you go. So let's go back. Let's search for tuple management. And we have information of the users. User Sabita, team frontend, and relationship is just a member. User, team DevOps. So user who belongs to the team DevOps has access to the DevOps team private.empty document. So if you try to access this document, maybe as a HR user or even as a manager user, unless they're part of the team, they would not have access to this document. Now let's run the application. So to run the application, let's head back to the terminal and run one start. Looks like the application is running. Let's check localhost port 3000. So this is the smart HR application. And to switch between the users, because this is just a demo application, you can switch between the users here and you can try to retrieve different documents, see if FGA actually works. Let's first get to the DevOps user. As a DevOps user, let's try to access some DevOps document. So I will ask, what is the DevOps headcount budget for 2023 and 2024? Let's see. I know this information is in the DevOps document, the private DevOps document. So user with role engineer and someone who is part of the DevOps team should be able to access this. Perfect. Because Ronja is part of the DevOps team, they can access the document. How do I know that? Again, that is in the tuple management. Now let's try a different user. We will try the same question, but this time let's go with V user. Ask the same question. I know the V user is part of the development team. So let's see what happens. There you go. So it says the specific DevOps headcount is not available. So it does not return the headcount budget of the DevOps team. But what it says, if you want the headcount budget for the development team, I can let you know. So this is a very smart way of answering from large language model. It says you are not authorized for DevOps headcount budget, but if you want the information of the development, I can share that with you. You can try the same thing as a HR user. In fact, as HR user, they should not have access to any development or DevOps documents. Let's see what happens. This time, it should clearly say you are not authorized for it. It should not retrieve development or even DevOps document. Perfect. I'm sorry, but I could not find specific information about the DevOps headcount. Let's try something else. Again, we will switch to the DevOps user. Let's try to ask who is on call in week 1 for DevOps Q4 2023. Basically, this information is stored in the DevOps documents so that you can go back and see if there is an incident, who resolved the incident, or for rotation purpose. DevOps on-call person is Ronja. The same thing, again, if HR tries to access, I'm sorry, but I could not find this information. But there are certain documents like the company policy documents or HR policy documents that every user should be able to access. Let's switch to the Joe's user who is part of the engineering team. And let's ask, what are the HR policies? Maybe Joe's just joined the organization. So Joe should see what are the different policies and complaints of the company. There you go. So this is the complete information. All the leave policies, the social media related policies, everything is available. So this is how FGA helps in the authorization. And this GitHub repository, as I told you, is the best thing to get started with. Just go ahead and try out the demonstration. So finally, I want to say enterprises are adopting AI systems within their organization, and the need for authorization at the retrieval level is only growing. So this is why it is important for all of us to understand how to build authorization aware RAG systems, especially if you are into building AI assistants, AI chatbots, or RAG systems within your organization. I would highly recommend you to try out Auth0 FGA. Once again, I'll share all the useful links in the description as well as the pinned comment. I hope you found today's video informative. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section. See you all in the next one. Take care.